post the link. I want to script it to float in my pool. You sure can. Just make sure you send me videos. That would be amazing. I would love to see that floating around in a pool. Welcome in. All right. Looks like people are hopping in still. Now we got the stream going. So you guys, you're free to. I'm going to mute myself on Discord so you can hear me on YouTube. But you guys are free to listen to the stream wherever you want. If you want to watch it on Discord or on YouTube, it's up to you. And in the meantime, let me start getting things ready. So I opened up the Legacy dev kit, just base, and I hate this dev kit. So we're going to fix it. We're going to go back to our regular layout mode, which is basically all we have to do to fix it is just delete this little custom tab that they have. And I also want to get rid of stuff that I'm not going to need. So if you're working in this file, anytime you're going to make something with a dev kit in general, make sure you save it as a new file, and you can get rid of a lot of the stuff that you don't need, because a lot of this stuff is here for you to use as a tool, but it will slow you down if you're working on stuff and you leave all of this in the background, right? So we have like all these different copies of the body that we don't really need. I'll leave one of the pointed feet so that we just have something there. Whoops. Can just start deleting these. Delete this. I don't need the pregnancy edition, the pinup edition, or the perky edition. So I can right click here and delete hierarchy. And then for the extras, do I need feet? We have sock references. What are these for? I never remember what they're here for. Oh, just the toes are capped off, right? So if you plan on doing something that's not open toe, you have extra stuff here to use. Don't need that though. We maybe will leave the manicure stuff and get rid of all the pedicure stuff. And that's probably all I'm going to need today. And now we have all that mesh that's taken up background space out of the way, right? So this Blender will be a little more performant, a little faster, right? Especially if you're on like a mid-level PC, it's much better to get rid of all that stuff in the background. And before I get to showing you how to make stuff on the body, let's just go over what we're talking about today. We're talking about mask extraction and stealing geometry, right? But what we're really talking about when I say this or when I bring this up is saving yourself time. So if you plan on being, hey, Goat, welcome in. If you plan on being a creator and making things for your store and you're going to be making a bunch of stuff, right? Anything that saves you time saves you money. And with the time saved, you can make more money, right? So just having fast workflows and being able to do things really quickly and knowing multiple different ways to do things can be huge, like a game changer in your output, right? When I say output, I mean like how many assets can you make in a week or in a month if you're trying to really do this like full time and become a source of income for you, you know, for your stores. Um, so I like knowing all different kinds of tricks. I'm always learning still, even though I've been doing this for a while and I know basically how to make anything. I'm still constantly watching videos on different workflows to see if I could pick up little golden nuggets and time savers so that I can put them in my own workflow, right? It's just cool to have a bunch of tools in your toolbox. If you've ever met a mechanic, you know that they probably own many tools for cars. They have their own toolboxes and they like to bring them, you know, wherever they go to work, right? Because the more tools you have, the more efficient you can be. Okay. So before we start talking about making things on the body, I might show you guys some examples with nails or making a shirt or something like that real quick. But I want to talk about when we would use stolen geometry or mask extraction on like simpler stuff, right? So here, if I have a cube, let's make a cube and let's make a copy of this cube. And let me turn screencast keys back on so that you guys can see. Should be here in my viewport, right? Nope. Whoops. There we go. So you guys can see what buttons I'm pressing and stuff. And also, I haven't put this out to the public yet, but I'm ready to. So if you guys are interested in being testers, let me know. I've made a little add-on of our own. Okay, so we're gonna have a little add-on for Blender, and we're also gonna have a little add-on for Substance Painter. This one is pretty cool because it will tell you as you're working in your project and doing things, it will track the amount of time that you spend working on stuff, right? So there's another good way to see how you can save time. And then this one too, like if you tab out or if you start watching YouTube or something and you just stop paying attention to Blender, it stops tracking the time. So it actually only tracks the time if you're actively working. Otherwise, it goes back to idling and it stops counting. And then when you're ready and you come back and you grab stuff and you start working, the timer starts going again, which is pretty cool. And it tracks across sessions. So if you close it and you open it again tomorrow and continue working on it, it continues tracking the time, right? So I'm going to be getting those to you guys soon. And you can mess with it on your own. It's a cool little thing to just pin here at the top if you want to know how long you've spent on a project. Really will open your eyes to see two things. One, how long things are taking you to make, and you can kind of calculate a cost per hour. If you're doing commissions for customers and they want you to make a shirt, you'll be able to like better understand, okay, that shirt might take me 4 hours, 5 hours. I like to at least make $15 an hour, so I need to charge you XYZ, okay? So like just having it there, it's not there to rush you or to bother you, but it is there to give you a good understanding of how you can price your own time. And then the faster you become at Blender, right, the faster you're able to make things, the more versatile you'll be able to be with compensating yourself for your own time. Like you'll be able to put out more faster and like just really understand how to price things, which is kind of cool. So if you guys are interested in testing that out, because it's kind of in beta right now, let me know. Contact me and I will send you a copy so you can play with it. And for right now, we're just going to leave it up so we can see how long we've been working on things. I have here a regular cube and a copy of the cube. And I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier to this cube times 3. And I'm just going to apply it just so we have some more geometry here. And I want to talk about some very basic things that you might need to do these type of methods for. Okay, so if we're talking about a hard surface model, and say we're in the design phase and we're still kind of concepting out things, and I decide I want a like a trim to go across the top of this cube. Okay, now if you are newer or beginner, you might have the impulse of doing this in several ways. You could maybe think, all right, I'm going to add a new mesh or a plane or something to a scene like this and kind of scale it into place, right? You start getting it ready. Some people have learned this way to where you have to visually like line everything up and you're taking your time and you know, maybe you go here and you add a loop cut here and you grab this face and extract it out, and now you have some kind of trim piece. Okay, that's its own piece, right? That you just wanted to border something. Maybe it's a window, maybe it's a car, a bumper, whatever. Like what it is not important. What matters is how we made it, right? So you see, that took me like a little bit longer, right? To kind of line it up. I had to look at it from different directions. Whereas we could do stealing geometry because we already have the surface here and we just need this stuff to be on the surface. We could have very easily just made a couple loop cuts on this geometry that already exists and then grab what we need. So grab the little circle here, or not circle, but the surrounding trim, right? We could press Shift D to duplicate. Now we have a copy of it. We can right click to leave it exactly where it is, hit P to separate it, and we separate it by selection. So now we have two objects here in the outliner. And if we go back to object mode and grab the new one, That's that little piece of trim that we just made. Okay, so now this is its own thing, right? Kind of cool. What do we do to make that like a trim piece? We hit E to extrude, right click to cancel, and then S to scale it up. And we can scale it up to however big we want it. And now we have that piece, right? Much faster than having to spin my camera around and line this up, okay? Alternatively, say you wanted to make, like, instead of some kind of bracketed trim on this, we wanted to make just a regular, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, we could go back to our original here and we can delete this geometry that we made because we don't really need it, right? So this will still be a cube, and then we have our trim piece if you wanted that as a separate piece. Additionally, if you wanted to, let's say we wanted to make a belt around an object, okay? So like this is a stomach or a belly or something, and we want to make a belt around it. Instead of, some people might say, like, let's make a cylinder maybe, and then line that cylinder up around the torso so that we have like a belt around it, right? But now you're stuck dealing with this big middle piece, right? You could like get rid of this and then extrude everything inward and have like your interfaces, and you can make a belt that's maybe going to be conformed well around the body, right? Because the body's probably not going to be a perfect cylinder. A waistline is more skinny, right? So then you'd have to like compensate and try to make it fit, right? Whereas if you're trying to make a belt around an object that already has geometry, why not just use the geometry of the object, right? So if this was a torso and you had an edge loop somewhere on the waistline, we could do the same thing where we shift E to duplicate the edge loop, right click to cancel, P to bring up our separate menu and separate it by selection, and go back into object mode where we have this new thing and we have this edge, right? This edge loop that we stole. Well, what can we do with that? We can do all kinds of things. If we scale it up a little bit and then say we want to extrude it down and make a belt or make a trim going around that, that's cool. We can do that. Or we can, in object mode, right click that little edge loop and convert it to a curve. Well, if you've seen our curve lessons before, you can do a lot of really cool stuff with curves. You can come down to geometry and you can start increasing your depth, and say you wanted to make this like a shibari rope or a shoelace or a lace or anything, right? You essentially have all these options when you turn something into a curve of how to manipulate this geometry. We can go to profile here, play with some of these presets if we wanted to make them kind of fancy type of curves that have like accents. There's all kinds of presets here that you can play with that will give you different results depending on your depth and your settings. Okay, but let's just say we're happy with just doing the round, right? Still really cool to be able to do something like that. Additionally, another good reason you might want to steal a curve is because you can use any other object. So say we added any other kind of geometry. So let's say a mesh icosphere. Let's shrink that way down, right? And let's give this little item here 2 modifiers. We're going to add an array modifier so we can make copies of it. And we're going to add a curve modifier. So let's see. Under deform curve. So we can throw the curve modifier on top. And remember, we made that new thing into a curve. So we can hit this little eyedropper tool, select the curve. Okay, let's hit everything and apply all our transforms. And now figure out where this went. Okay, so we have our object. Let's say we want to deform it. I have to do that curve after the array. There we go. So now when we have our array, we can just turn up our number here and fill a whole bunch of objects around this object following this curve, which is really fun. And then you can spread that out, right? This is useful for designing jewelry, designing chains, designing pearls, any kind of accent pieces where you could think to add a bunch of objects. You could do this with teeth. You could do this with necklaces. You could make a rosary like this. You could do a zipper, tons and tons of things, right? But instead of making these little things individually and lining them up, we're taking from the geometry of the object that we're trying to wrap them around, which makes it very easy to do, right? So say like I wanted to do something weird and just have this one, okay? This edge loop, right? P to separate it by selection. I've made a new one here. I can right click, convert that to a curve. I can scale that curve up a little bit. Whoops, let's set the geometry to itself. Set the origin to its own geometry. So when I scale it up, it scales up even, right? And now this guy is a curve. You see, it behaves like a curve. So I could do the same thing with these little icospheres. Make a copy, Shift D, and instead of assigning it to the curve it was on before, let's assign it to this new one that we made. Okay, and we'll just apply all our transforms to fix these weird issues. And now look, I can do the same thing in whatever direction I want. And if I'm not happy with how far away that is, I can scale it. Set the origin to itself and then scale it in and then apply my transforms again so that my things come back. But it's a very cool way to quickly make iterations of stuff and distribute geometry. So the less time we have to spend actually lining these things up, the more we save ourselves time, right? Very, very useful. Now let's talk about some practical examples directly on a body. Okay, so let's turn on my legacy body again. Also welcome in Dakota and all the new faces. Welcome, guys. So I have this body, right? This legacy body. And there's a couple things that I can do if I want to make very fast iterations of clothing or leggings or fingernails, gauntlets, shoulder pads, bras, lingerie, like all kinds of things that you can do with this method I'm about to show you. Okay, so firstly, we talked about stealing geometry. Stealing geometry is very, very obvious in the sense that we're literally taking from the geometry that already exists. So if I'm looking at this, right, and I decide I want to do a shirt, I could look at this in X-ray mode. I could come down to my lasso select, right? So if I click this, I can go to select lasso and I can draw the outline of a t-shirt or something. And you could turn on symmetry to do this if you wanted it to be perfectly symmetrical. Let's say I was gonna make this type of shirt, right? That's like barely covering things, like a teasy type of vibe, right? I could take this selected geometry. Maybe I need to add a little more because the other sleeve looks a little longer, but we could now duplicate this geometry. Let's go to face select mode, Shift D to duplicate, and I just grabbed this, right? So I just made this. And let's hit P, separate it by selection. Now we have a new kind of copy of this shirt thing, okay? And it's kind of ugly because it's using the direct geometry on the body, but we can fix it, right? What we can do here is use that plugin that I was telling you about, and it's called Q Remeshify. Now, obviously, manual retopology is always going to be your best bet for getting the best topology on clothing, which is something that I'll show you here after this example. But say we just wanted to make a quick iteration of something, right? We could totally take this here, go to Q Remeshify, and the bigger you make this number, the bigger your quads will be. So let's start with something small like 1.5 and we'll see if we need to turn that up. Let's turn on symmetry because we want the shirt to be symmetrical across the x-axis. Okay. And let's hit, with that shirt selected, let's actually, it's giving you a warning. Please save. It may be slow. So this is the time where you would save it as a new file. So you'd want to make sure that you're not overwriting your dev kit because you remember we deleted a bunch of stuff from it in the beginning. So we want to make sure that we are not overwriting the actual dev kit. We're just giving this a new name so it saves as a new file. And I'm calling it stealing geometry and mask extraction. Sagami. Nailed it. All right. So we've saved it. Now let's hit this remesh button. Once you hit the remesh button, Blender will kind of lock up for a second as it's beginning to remesh this new thing that you've made, okay? Now let's take a look at it without the body in our way. Now one, you'll notice a few things. One, it's actually changed the geometry, okay? This is not the same geometry we just had. This is new geometry. It's a remeshed geometry on top of where it came from. So this was above the body. Let's turn this back on. And we can kind of compare. If we move this and take both of these into edit mode, we can see the difference in how this geometry is laid out, right? First of all, this is triangulated and this is not, but you can also see that this is just different. For example, we have a nice big pole here, very easy to spot because it's a point that extends in 5 different directions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It kind of looks like a star, and you'll start to see these all over mesh. For example, I can see another one here. Boom, 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 boom. And these are not like the worst thing in the world. There's another 3-pointed star here. There's another 5-pointed star here, but you start to spot these, right? And they're just where edge flow changes direction. So if you're strategic about how these land and how these end up, then you can start to learn the secrets of like good deformation when it comes to topology. So let's put both of these in edit mode. We can see they're different, right? And when we remeshed it, it didn't delete the original one that we took from, so we can delete that if we want. And we can send this one back to where it was. Actually, let me just undo so I can send it back to where it was perfectly without it move in. There we go. So if we turn this back on, this is the remeshed version. You can see it's named remeshed. This is the one that we took from, and I will delete that. And now, if you're happy with your remesh, then what you can do is kind of come into sculpt mode. And let's go to this drop down here. Change this setting to random so that they're 2 different colors, okay? And if we cleaned this up, we can use this little inflate brush and put it at a really small setting, like 0.2 or something. Turn on symmetry, so we're working on both sides at the same time. And we can kind of brush on this mesh. If it will brush, hello. Let's see here. Maybe we need to turn our strength up just a tiny bit. There we go. So it's working, it's just not working well. Let's get out of sculpt mode and go back into sculpt mode. Make sure we have this selected. We have the inflate brush and we have symmetry on. Ah, I see what's happening. We haven't applied our transforms. So these brushes don't work correctly all the time if you don't apply your transforms. Let's go back into sculpt mode. Applying your transforms will fix like 99% of your problems in Blender. But no, this guy still doesn't want to cooperate well. There we go. And essentially, you could inflate your mesh to make this like outside the skin, so you can start cleaning it up to make it a t-shirt. Now, we could clean it in several ways. We could manually line up some of these edges so that they are straighter, and we can start cleaning the topology. So now that I've sculpted it out, if I took it back to edit mode, you could like painstakingly come in here and clean up this geometry and make new quads and join things together and fix faces, which is something that I highly recommend you practice, because the faster you get at this, the faster you can make like a ton of stuff. But let's say we didn't want these and we just wanted to clean all this up, dissolve this vertice and delete this edge. And we just join this together so that we have quads and triangles everywhere, right? We select these, fill it in, fill it in, fill it in, fill it in, and this last one would be a triangle unless we fixed it. But you can see I can fix all my edges, right? And then I have like the basis for like a pretty simple little top, right? And this one already has kind of decent edge flow, right? The better this edge flow is around the boobs, the easier time you'll have with weight painting it, right? Because it's guiding the edge flow and the deformation in all the right ways, okay? And that's something you kind of learn more with experience. But if you're ever curious as to how to get good edge flow on the body or what good edge flow looks like on the body, you can always Google topology example for a t-shirt or topology female anatomy example or something like that, and it will show you how to route your edge flow so that when things are bending, deforming, right? Because there's only certain ways a body can bend. This lady's spine can bend side to side, obviously. Like, we're all people, we know how you can bend, and we can bend forward and backward. So having good edge flow to support that movement while also having like circles kind of closer to the belly will help you when it comes to like weight painting and not having to fight with your mesh versus a lot of creators. And it's not that it's totally wrong, but a lot of creators just keep completely straight up and down lines all around the mesh, right? They just go like a literal crosshatch, right? Is it wrong? No. Can you still work with it? Yes. Do you have a little bit of a harder time weight painting when it's not there to work well with you? Yes. That being said, learn what works for you. If you have a system that already works like that, or you follow tutorials where they're already doing that, that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. Um, but it is a little bit easier to work with if it's already set in a way that helps you, right? And what is the best way to get topology specific to the legacy body? What better way than to follow the guidelines of whoever made this body, right? If we follow the edge flow around, we can see that there are those loops around the belly. That circle that I was talking about to hold and protect the belly button, you can see it here already. You can see those poles and the different routes that the edges take, right, to follow this deformation along. You see right here where the boob is, we have solid edges that support the deformation and weight distribution of these boobs already, right? You can follow these edges like all the way down, and they go down, down, and around, right? What does that mean for a shirt? Well, if a shirt has topology like this, where the edge flow is working with you, you're not going to struggle so much when you're weight painting this section versus having stuff that's straight up and down and then it can't decide which way it wants to go. Same thing here in the arms. You can see this edge flow here supports deformation of the arm, right? The arm itself will bend up and down the same way any arm would, right? You're bending the arm itself side to side or forward and back, and the topology of the skin really lends and helps with that deformation, with that bending. So if you can have your clothes work with your topology, then that's half the battle. Okay, let's send this back and let's talk about another trick we can use, right? So I set this to 1.5 for the density, and you can see on my shirt here that my squares are pretty small. If I wanted this to be a little cleaner, meaning like if I wanted this to kind of clean up my edges a little bit, what I could do, if I didn't want to fight with it too much, is let's say I take this back into sculpt mode, and let's use a grab brush, just this yellow grab brush, and we grab some of these points, and I can hold shift to smooth things out, but I can also grab individual vertices to pull them around. So you see we can get real close here, and I can just grab this vertex and kind of try to make this a little bit of a straighter line. And it's okay if this isn't perfect, because the remesher is going to try to kind of solve this for you or resolve this for you. So if we try to keep this as straight a line as possible, right? Let's just say we come in and we start kind of cleaning this up a bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you see it's becoming straighter. Let's deflate that nipple part a little bit, because we don't necessarily need it to be super pointy right there, but also it's a little sexy if it keeps the shape, like a little hint of it. Maybe you cover this up, you know, you guys are designers, you can do whatever you want. But we're just talking about getting this part here kind of cleaned. So if, let's say I'm not even worried about perfect, I'm just kind of worried about keeping it a little straighter than it is right now. Okay, so let's hold shift here, and same here. We can kind of straighten this out, straighten out the sleeves, and you could do this more carefully than I am so that you get better results. But you see, if you straighten it out first and then you hit it with a remesh, and this time I'm going to turn my my QRemeshify settings up just a little bit. Let's go back to object mode. And instead of 1.5, let's make this 2 so that we make these squares a little bit bigger. I'm going to hit remesh. Which remesher am I using? It's in the description of this video. You can get it for free. It's called QRemeshify. You can get it for free off their GitHub. And then Ty just posted in the link on Discord as well. So if you can't find the link, it's in 2 places. I'm going to remesh this again with a little bit higher density. You're going to see these squares are going to get slightly bigger, but also it has gone ahead and fixed a few of these edge problems, right? So instead of me having to come in and manually fix these, we can have less work to do. Essentially, we can just fill this in, edge mode, fill this in, and then check and see if there are any other spots where we have to do some work. Now, for areas like this, where you have like the nipple kind of fighting you, you can take this back to sculpt mode. You can use proportional editing. So say I grab one vertice like this and I hit this proportional editing button, or the O key on my keyboard. If I hit G to move and I roll my mouse wheel up, you'll see this little ring, right? So let's lock it to the y-axis because we're going to move it forward. And I can move it now. And the bigger I make this ring, the more influence it will have for the mesh around it. So I can move a lot of it, I can move a little of it, but I can use this to kind of shape the area, right? Proportional editing. I can quickly, almost like a grab brush, but not quite like a grab brush. And if I want to move this back, I can make this smaller, you know? Or we could just go straight into sculpt mode and use a grab brush and clean all that up. I don't think I selected the top when I was working, so let's turn off proportional editing here and just kind of freestyle grab some of these points, right? And I'm not too worried about being perfect because all I'm trying to do is have some kind of straight edge here, so we can get rid of stuff that we don't need, right? Let's say we get rid of all that, and now we have like a nice neckline in the front, and then, you know, you could fix the back if you want to. But if we hit this again with a remesh, then it will clean that up for us. The part that we just did, it will just make sure that everything is distributed nicely. It's also got this mirror modifier, so you're only working on half of it. And this would be like a really cool, really fast way to make a shirt. Now you could do more from here, right? You could add cloth simulation. You could have it, you know, as like a base template if you wanted to take it into Marvelous Designer. There's ways to chop it up and do that. There's also, you know, a benefit to having this being really, really low poly, because if we apply this, let's just apply this modifier. We are sitting on 2,377 vertices. It's a little bit heavy for the shirt, but that's cool, right? It's still, you know, low poly if we shade it smooth, right? Let's pretend we did more, you know, don't worry about like these little mistakes, right? Because you would spend more time cleaning this up nicely. But let's pretend we wanted to put some really nice cloth folds on this. We could add a multi-resolution modifier to this, which will allow us to take this into really, really high density so that we could go into sculpt mode and add really, really fine detail. If you have any cloth brushes, so for example, we could for now just use like a cloth brush, simple cloth brush, and I don't know that it will simulate the right way because it's too dense. Hold on one second. I might have just crashed Blender. Too much, a little too much there. Let's go to our multi-res modifier and crank that back some so that when we stretch it, it's less destructive. But say you wanted to put some like cloth movement, cloth wrinkles, whatever in here, you know, you could simulate it or you could do it by hand. But having this multi-res modifier will allow you to get really, really fine detail in there. If you wanted to draw your cloth deformation in, we could grab like a draw brush, make it a little smaller, and just kind of hit some cloth fold type of stuff. So let's say most cloth folds happen in like zigzag patterns. And if we just add some and then subtract some and then add some, we can get some really cool looking cloth deformation, right? And I'm not even putting that much work into this. You could, genuinely like make this really nice. Use a reference and see how this type of cloth like deforms around the body, and that will give you the best kind of cloth results, right? So if you wanted this to look really, really authentic, you could grab a couple references and see how the cloth is, like how these folds are happening, and then make them real pretty. But look at this. This is already pretty interesting, right? I haven't even been working on it for any type of serious amount of time. Like we've been doing all this and we're only 22 minutes into actually working, and I'm not really trying here, right? Like you guys, if you put some effort into this, you could make some really pretty, really nice stuff very easily without having to use the old-fashioned plain method of making clothing, which would be, if we delete this, to add a plane and rotate it upwards, scale it downwards, get it into place. And I'm working pretty fast because my muscle memory here is pretty strong. I do all these operations in Blender all day long, so I can very quickly do stuff like this. But if you were going to do it the old-fashioned way, you might like literally be building face by face to build out an entire t-shirt, right? Which takes forever. Versus what I did, where I just, grabbed some of the geometry that already exists and I made a shirt. Additionally, now we can talk about mask extraction, which is almost the same as just using the geometry that's already on the body. If we take this body and let's make a copy, I'm going to make a duplicate and turn the original off. And let's just apply the armature so that it's not worried about bending or deforming or anything. This is just mesh now, okay? This doesn't have a skeleton anymore. You can't bend the arms. You can't have like deformation with the skeleton. If I move the skeleton here, nothing's gonna happen because I have applied the armature. So if I take this into pose mode and I pose it, nothing happens. It's not posing anyway because it's not in pose mode, it's in rest mode. So if I go to pose position and move the skeleton, you see it does not follow, right? I've just made a copy of the mesh. I haven't destroyed the old mesh. I haven't deleted the old mesh. It's still there. But this copy is purely so that I can do mask extraction. So if I go to sculpt mode and I hit M for my mask brush, now you see my brush is gray. And if I draw on stuff, you see it becomes darker. I can turn on symmetry. And let's just say that I wanted to mask out a section of the body to do the same thing. Now, you also can, just like before, instead of using this mask brush, there is one called Mask Lasso, if I remember correctly. Let's see, where's that at? Maybe not. Oh, here, box mask. If you click on box mask and hold down your left click, you can get to lasso mask. And lasso mask will allow you to do essentially the same thing. You see I have symmetry on here and I can just bam, like grab out if I hold shift. Or you don't have to hold shift because it's a lasso mask. So bam. If I wanted to make this into a t-shirt, right? I could do the same thing. I could just lasso mask the parts that I want. And now that I have this, right, I can come up here to mask extract, and I can turn off extract it as a solid because I don't want this to be like a complete piece in the middle. We want it to have a hole in the middle. So we could do mask extract and turn off extract as a solid and then click extract. And now we have extracted some mesh, right? If we go to our sculpt mode on this new mesh that we've made, we can then grab an inflate brush, and same as before, we can inflate this away from the body a little bit, right? Now we have too much geometry for a t-shirt. I think this is pretty dense because it's extracted from the body underneath, and the body itself is kind of dense. But you could get this nicely in place here, and then do the same thing where we go to object mode, we go to QRemeshify, and we tell this we want it to have a nice big density. So let's say 3, and we'll hit remesh. Now it should have some pretty nice sized squares this time. We're going for a little bit lower poly. So you see this is great. Okay. Now the great thing about this is you can already see the edge flow is kind of trying to follow the curvature of the body. It could have been a little bit better here. Might want to come in and clean this up, right? And we could, manually clean that up. If you guys have seen my manual retopology videos, you'll know how you can fix this pretty easily, right? But check this out. Let's go back into sculpt mode and hit that with just a little bit more inflate. We can just click around. But let's say that this was going to be our low poly t-shirt, right? Look at this topology. It's already, it's not the best. Manual is always going to give you the best result, okay? Just make sure you understand that if you're wanting to be next level with things and you really are ready to take your workflow to the next level, your clothing to the next level, your skill set to the next level, you're always going to want to practice manual retopology so that you understand how this deformation stuff works. It's super important. But if you're just getting into creating and you're just getting into designing and you want to crank out quick iterations of clothing, this is a great way to do it. Okay, there's nothing wrong with this. And you can always tweak the topology to kind of work for you. If we shade this smooth, check that out. I have a t-shirt that would be about 1,400 vertices if we applied this. So let's apply this. Let's count 1,423. And this is not terrible. This is not the worst t-shirt I've ever seen. Okay. Definitely going to try this out and see how it changes your rigging experience. I suspect, my hypothesis, okay, is that it will help your rigging. If your edge flow was not already following tightly contours of the body, right, then it's very likely that you spend a little bit more time weight painting and a little bit more time fighting with clipping versus having topology that's kind of moving in the same direction as your other edge flow that's already on the body, right? It kind of benefits you. Okay, so this is one way to do it. That was the mask extraction way. So I literally just masked out a section of the body and I built a t-shirt from that mask. Okay, you can do that with shorts, skirts, lingerie. You can do that with shoes, which is what I kind of wanted to show you in this other project here. You see I have these nice fancy boots, and these boots, let's change this to a random color so you can really see what's happening here, is these boots are showing sections of skin, right? I haven't finished this project, but I love the way that this looks, right? I love the way that it leaves exposed skin or whatever. Well, was I going to take a plane and spin it like a cyclone around this leg one at a time? No way. I would have been there forever and I would have made myself dizzy and I would have really, really struggled, right? But one of the perks of mask extraction is being able to, let's show you exactly how I made something like this, right? It's been a while since I've worked in this project, but let's just take a look. So if I was going to make that again, right? If I was going to do that same type of mask extraction, I could take these two, make a copy so that I have a copy to play with. We would need to hide the other ones. Hold on. So Control I to select everything except that and then hide it. So now we just have these two. Okay. And I would like to get this leg out of my way because I don't want to be working with this leg in my way. Who would want that? Let's turn on the skeleton. Let's grab it. Go to pose mode. Grab this leg. Move it out of my way. Okay. And from this point here, remember this is a copy of the body, so I could literally just apply this armature get rid of it. Oh, that's my subdivision modifier. That is not what I meant to apply. Whoops, big mistake. Hopefully that doesn't crash Blender. Nope, let's just Control Z, undo that. I don't want to apply the subdivision. I just want to apply the armature. Get rid of that skeleton. Okay, and now I can hide the armature. This thing has no more skeleton, so I can't bend it back. But what I can do is erase all the stuff that I don't need. So let's go to my select lasso, and let's just say this is all I want to keep. I just want to keep a little bit of that ham. Invert this, hit X, delete the vertice. Now it's out of my way, and this foot is also out of my way. I can grab this foot, and let's select this whole foot. We can get rid of that too, right? So we're basically going to join these two together. Oh, hold on. We have to apply our armature here. And let's get rid of this subdivision surface modifier. We'll join these together with Control J, right? Now I have this leg here, okay? Boom. Say I want to build a boot out of this. Same way I told you before. We could come into sculpt mode. We could hit M to grab a mask. Okay, now I don't need symmetry on because I'm only working on one leg. But what I did when I made that that fancy type of boot, sorry, I keep trying to make my brush smaller and I keep switching off it. But essentially what I was able to do was kind of mask in a zigzag, right? So I had like the whole foot here, which was covered. I'm pretty sure it was spinning in the other direction. That's fine. But let's just say like I had all of this selected. And then right when this broke off, I had it following like this. So let's say I'm slowly spinning this mask up the leg. So we'll grab all this and we're just gonna kind of like spiral spin this. Actually, you know, probably easier. Let's just mask out the whole thing and then undo the part that we don't want. Probably be a lot faster. So let's say we mask all this out, right? Now I want a section that starts in the back of the leg and I want to get rid of it. So I'm going to make my brush smaller and I'm going to use my control button and I can control and undo the mask in this section. So obviously you would take your time with it and you could do this anywhere on the body. It doesn't have to be necessarily like the leg, but it's a pretty cool way to design something like this. Say I wanted it to come off in the front. You know what I mean? We straighten this out. We straighten out this mask, right? And we can hold down A and hit sharpen mask. Boom. To kind of make a sharper version of the mask. We come up here to mask and we go mask extract. We turn off the solid. Remember, we don't want to project it as a solid because that will fill in the middle and we can't have that. And let's hit extract. Bam. Now we have this whole new piece. Okay. And remember, if we set our colors to random, they should be different colors. So if I go to sculpt mode and I grab that inflate brush and I turn the strength down to like 0.25 or something. Let's make this smaller with F. I can then follow this all the way around the body. And as I brush it all in, you'll see that it kind of takes the same shape of what we had there before. That cool looking boot that comes apart in the back and then wraps its way around the leg, okay? So this one obviously is not as clean because I didn't take as much time making it pretty. And we have a little bit of a separation between the feet because I didn't actually merge those vertices together. So there's like a hole here, which would be fixed if we had just joined them together first before we did it. And then these toes here are going to be a problem, but I probably like cut the ends off and then close them. So we'll do that too. I'll show you guys how I handle that problem. But all of this very, very fast, right? Without having to manually place a bunch of stuff. So we have this here. Let's go back to edit mode and let's figure out how to we could. I'd probably say it'd be faster to just redo the mask. Let's hide this. And all we have to do here is merge the vertices by distance. So M, merge by distance. And you see it removed 55 vertices. Now if we go back into sculpt mode, hopefully it still has my mask. All right, so with this mask, let's just extract it again. Mask extract, deselect extract as a solid, extract. Now you see I can go into sculpt mode and I don't have that problem around the ankle anymore where it didn't attach, right? So we have like the whole foot here, the whole part of the boot, and we fixed that weird issue where it didn't connect at the ankle. So we would inflate this, get it outside the skin. You could remeshify it, right? So you could get some better, cleaner topology. The better your base topology, like the better your low poly version is, the better results you will get on the high poly. That's something to keep in mind, right? So like the cleaner you can get it at the lower stage, the nicer it will look at the end stage, which is something that I had a very hard time learning as I was learning sculpting. But let's check it out. Let's go back to object mode here. Let's turn this remesh thing up to 2. Okay, and let's remesh it and see what happens. Let's see if it can give us some kind of nice result. Also on this one, notice that I did not have my symmetry enabled because I don't want X symmetry across the X axis. This is just one leg. But check this out. Now it's starting to clean itself up, right? If I go into sculpt mode again, I can continue to smooth and inflate these edges to kind of get like a better result. I really want them outside the skin. So we can maybe use a grab brush here and try to pull on them. It's not going to pull well, so we just have to like keep messing with inflate and smooth to kind of get these nicer. Also, these squares are pretty small, so you could do this with like less geometry too. But look at that. It's already lending itself to like a nice bit of thickness. You have something interesting, and like with some more time, you could really clean this up and make like a nice iteration of something cool. But you could see like the exact technique that I used to make the boots that I had before. Let's go to edit mode and let's check out our feet here, and we can deal with all these toes. We can probably just lasso select all these toes and cut them off. Oh no, she has no toes. If we remeshed now and got some type of solid edge here from the bottom, so let's say we continue to cut this off and we straighten these out, right? Like you get this edge looking straighter and you remesh it again. It should clean up like the jaggedness of this, and then you could extrude that out to cover up your toes to like make that nice toe arch while not having them be individual toes. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Does anyone have any questions? Are you guys understanding how like being able to manipulate mesh like this and just do fast iterations of stuff is super duper useful? And I'm not seeing anyone typing, so hopefully that's a no. Okay, Gigi says yes. All right, awesome. So that's one way you could do something like that to make heels. Another thing you could do, remember we kept that manicure set, and this is going to be the last thing I show y'all today, is we can come back to this and hide it. But say you wanted to make nails. One of the most annoying thing about making nails is if you don't make nails on top of this, you have to come in and place the nails on every single finger, and that drives me insane. So sometimes when I just want to start a base, right, I might copy this legacy perfect manicure thing and apply the armature on one of them so that it's not a problem, right? We can grab some of this geometry that already exists. So let's say we took, will it let me? Let's say I took something like this. You see there's a clear edge that goes around the bed of the nails for each nail. And let's say I just wanted to borrow some of this geometry so I could make my own nail base, right? And this could be for any type of nails, short nails, stilettos, coffins, whatever you could think of. Did those join there? Or did I grab the wrong one? I think I grabbed the wrong two. Hold on. So, whoop. Not this one. It's this one. I think that's correct. But let's say we grabbed this, right? We have this nail bed base. Now we can let's see. Can I do it that way? If I control plus? It's not going to work that way. Okay, well, we would deselect some of this. But let's just say we grabbed this, right? Shift D to duplicate. Now we have a really nice start for like a nail. Let's hit P to separate by selection and then grab that new one that we made and put it in solo mode. Okay, so a couple things we could do. We could get rid of the ones that are kind of elevated, or we could try to smooth this out. Let's go to sculpt mode, hold shift, and kind of smooth this out. I don't want to take too much away from the shape, so I'm just going to try to smooth it out on the inside. And make it kind of flatter, okay? So we have something like this. Now, we can go back to object mode, get out of solo mode, and if we go to edit mode, select all, look at it from the side here, and we can E to extrude and do something like this, okay? Now, obviously, I would clean this up, okay? I might take this into sculpt mode, and now I could smooth out the tops or use, probably better, to use a grab brush and kind of pull this back some, you know, clean it up. Pull back the cuticles so that they're resting where they need to. You could inflate the middle to kind of bring this up more. And that's when you could start building out the rest of your shape if you wanted to turn this into like a longer, pointier claw type of nail. You could start getting the shape ready now. So you could start, you know, pulling it around and kind of figuring out how you want your nail to look. This could be, there's so many different ways to do nails. Use a reference so that you kind of know which way you want to make your shape. You could grab an inflate brush here just because I want to fix some of these areas that are kind of close to this ridge and they're sticking up. Could do something like this, right? Now the benefit to this method is one, was very easy to make this shape. Two, I can come into QRemesher. Let's go to object mode. QRemeshify, and let's say, yeah, 3 is fine. We'll say 3 is fine for now. And let's hit remesh. And again, it takes a second, but look at that. You have a nice, like, little low poly nail base to start working with. And I had symmetry on there so you can see the nails all the way on the other finger as well, too. So I did them both at the same time. And here you could clean it up. You could smooth it out with sculpt. You could smooth it out with proportional editing. But essentially, you have, like, an okay little base. I would have spent more time to make sure that this was straight and not kind of crooked. But one of the huge advantages is that I now don't have this nail. Let's say if I separate these by loose parts. Did that work? No, because it's a mirror modifier. I have to apply that first. So let's separate this one from the other one. So now I don't have to drag this nail and try to line it up, right? Because let's say I did it the old-fashioned way where this was, let's see, Shift S, selection to cursor. Oh, sorry. Set the origin to itself and then send it to the cursor. So let's say this was down here, right? And I built it down here, like on a flat piece. I was tracing out a picture or a reference picture or something, and I was tracing out quads and I built it like this. But now I have to place it on all these individual fingers. So I'm like lining it up and turning my camera and rotating it all crazy. So another trick I'm going to show you for that, right, is if you ever have to do it that way, one thing that we can do is pick our kind of starting spot, hold shift and right click to put the cursor there. Now we can right click, set the origin to the 3D cursor. So our origin point will be right where the tip of this nail is. Now I can come up here to my manicure set, hold shift, right click so that I send the cursor here. If I hold shift S, selection to cursor, bam, it will send my nail there. The only annoying thing is you still have to line it up once you get here, which can be really irritating because I'm a huge perfectionist and I hate like having to spin my camera this way and then, oh no, this a little too bit out, spin my camera this way, oh no, it's a little too this way. Like this becomes really tedious. One of the reasons why I used to hate making nails until I started doing it this other way with mask extraction, because then the nail is already where you want it to be. Like it's already placed. You're just adjusting it to adjust the shape, essentially. Okay, that is just about our time for today. If you guys are interested, like I said again, in getting some of these add-ons that I've been working on, you know, this one's for Blender. It'll track how much time you're spending active in a project. And if you close it and reopen it, it will add to your session count. You can reset them. I also made one for Substance Painter that I kind of want to show off to you guys because I did that today and it's a little cool. So I'll show you that and then we'll get out of here and get our weekend started. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, please post them in the chat. Okay. Also, if you're not a member of our Patreon, please consider joining our Patreon. We have all the videos we've ever made, like 100 videos, and you can get access to all of them for like $3 a month. We keep it super duper affordable. We also have classes on clothing and making nails and making heels for Legacy coming up soon. We're going to show you guys how to make them from scratch and how to rig them to the Legacy body. So we'll answer all your rigging and wake painting questions. We're going to be teaching out of the Legacy Discord. There's more information on that in the announcements. But this is the Substance Painter add-on that I've made that will essentially track how long you've spent in your Substance Painter session, the same way that the Blender one is. This one has a couple more features, though. You can tell it to remind you to save because Substance Painter autosave fails on us all the time, and it's really annoying. So this one, you can tell it every 5 minutes, tell me to save my project, and you can have it do a custom message. Miwo would like to remind you to save your project, or you could say, hey, idiot, save your project, or curse yourself out, whatever you got to do to motivate yourself. I left you the option. And then also, just because, not that anybody wanted it except for me, but when I play Spotify music, it shows up here in Substance Painter, and I can like change the songs, play, pause, all from inside this little window, so I don't have to switch out or move my hands, I guess, too much to get to the skip button. I don't know. I put it in there. So if you want it and you want to test it, let me know. I need some testers. And then it's going to be released publicly for the Patreon members very soon. But that's all we got today. Thank you guys so much for coming to class. If you have any feedback for us, would like to tell us whether or not we've done a good job, bad job, any questions, classes you want to see, suggestions, go fill out our feedback form. Just got posted in the chat. I'm going to end the stream here and join you guys back on Discord. Thank you for coming to class. I'll talk to you in a second.